All right, welcome back to the Central Valley Buzz, everybody. I'm your host, Chuck Leonard. Hey, Willie, let's bring in our next guest from 21st Century Faith, Michael Bogart. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good to see you.
I should say, and mindcuisine.com,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
I have that line of products as well.
Tell people at home a little bit before we get started in our conversation what 21st Century Faith is all about.
21st Century Faith is about helping people understand how particularly Christian faith is relevant to the 21st century and the times that we live in.
Because there's more and more people that don't believe in the Bible.
Well, we're living in an age of skepticism. I don't know if you've noticed that. I think the internet is...
I started it. No,
we're living in a time when the internet is full of, it's a skeptic's paradise.
Right.
And
keyboard bullies, people with opinions.
Absolutely.
Right?
And not that there aren't some things to be skeptical about. But the climate is very skeptical, and I think one of the things I want to do is to help people realize that faith really does play a part in the 21st century.
You know, with the internet, you got people like Chris Angel, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what he's doing? He's walking on water. Oh, yeah. Right? Makes people think. Are there more and more people that think that this Bible is, these stories in the Bible, they can't be true. They're way too far-fetched.
Well, and you hear that a lot. Jesus fed the 5,000 with, loaves and fishes. That can't possibly be true. Jesus walked on water. Jesus is resurrected. And it goes on and on. And, of course, none of us were there to see the event. There's no photographs of it. So, now you can't prove it one way or the other. And so it does come down to a matter of faith both ways. Faith that it didn't happen, faith that it did happen. And of course the Christian contention is that if God is who we think he is, he can intervene with the laws of nature if he wants to, occasionally.
Is it the Old Testament that turns off the new kids?
Well, there are things in the Old Testament that are disturbing, with the Israelites conquering the land of Canaan and, capital punishments for certain crimes that we don't consider to be that bad.
Turning people into salt?
Well, yes, because she looked back when she was told not to.
Right.
And all that sort of thing.
But even if that's not the real story, still a lesson learned, right?
Lesson learned in terms of what?
Well, they told her not to look, and she did it anyway.
Yes, you can use it as a moral lesson. I see what you're talking about. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So, and you're talking about this whole thing of, mean people on the internet. And of course, there's all sorts of mean people on the internet. And one of the things that I like to talk about is what we call civil discourse. Remember last week we talked about, how I feel like at least Christian people ought to lead the way in being nice and talking to people politely and that sort of thing.
But what happens is someone says something against what they think, and all of a sudden the fight's on, like many wars throughout history, Mike.
Absolutely. And the key there is to develop, first of all, listening skills. First of all, sometimes we get mad about things that the person really didn't say, You know how you've been in conversations where you're
Christians twisting things around, Michael? Come on.
Christians do twist things around, but so does everybody.
Right.
And you've just been, in marriage. You think your wife said something when actually she didn't say that at all, but you're already rebutting what you thought she said. And that's the sort of thing that goes on the internet, is that we don't really listen fully to what the other person's saying, and perhaps more importantly, what they're not saying.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's why I dislike texting. Because texting you can think that someone means something completely different, because who wants to text a long paragraph? You want to get it quick and over with.
Right. And you hit the capital, the capital lock, and all of a sudden you're shouting at somebody, and they take it that way, and you never meant it at all.
There's people that think that's okay.
To shout all the time?
To do the cap lock.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I know. And you're
nice.
right. We've gotten away from the face-to-face kinds of conversations where I'm reading your face, I'm reading your body language, as well as listening to what you're saying. I'm thinking about what you're really trying to get at before I reply to it. That's a lost art, I think.
Right.
And of course on the internet, all it is text on a screen, so it's that much more easy, I guess you'd say, to misunderstand.
So does that drive young people away from the church?
What,
just conversations on the internet? Do they think that the people that are typing this out are an expert on that subject, and they should listen to them?
Well, I think sometimes some people are tempted to believe that if somebody says something forcefully, with some kind of self-imposed authority, that must be true.
It rings true.
Yeah, and it really comes down to a matter of persuasion rather than facts, and that can work both ways.
Is that why people raise their voice?
I think so.
People are trained to think that if they raise their voice, the authority means it's true?
Yeah, I think so. I think a sternness.
Fear is the quickest way to respect?
Or intimidation.
Right.
You know, saying something intimidating can cause a person to back off. Yeah, sure. There are those techniques. And, you know, you've been probably on a jury before. Lawyers use those techniques.
Well, you know, I never have.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I've been asked a couple times. We could never just really work it out.
Well, I've served a couple of times, and I'd rather not do it again. But, you know, it's one of those things. There are certain courtroom techniques that people use all the time on the internet.
Sure. I watch Columbo. I know how it works.
Sure enough.
Now, are you teaching anywhere?
Yes, I am.
You're teaching at West Hills, right?
I teach at West Hills Community College. In fact, this evening is my night class, but I teach online for them. And then I also teach right now at Excelsior College, which is a purely online institution.
Okay. What about church? Are you ministering at church anywhere?
I am a member of Campus Bible Church here in Fresno. I used to be on staff there. But right now, we've been serving up at the church where we live up in Course Gold. I'm teaching a series of classes for them. So we get around quite a bit. You know, with my ministry, I tend to serve a lot of churches at different times.
You know, you talked last week, I think it was, about you and your sons and your son's friends, how you had a months-long conversation about that. I think it'd be kind of cool if you started that up with people you didn't know.
Well, and that's what we're trying to get people to do. What we called Man Church, I had a fancy name for it. The guys didn't go for it. They just called it Man Church. And so we had these fathers and sons that met for actually 2.5 years. And we're trying to repeat that with different people, you know, setting up things like that in their own network. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of making people understand how relevant faith is in the 21st century is simply a mentoring thing, you know, a place where some experienced person is really mentoring people who want to learn from them.
Not just the people on the internet.
Not just the people on the internet. Because, I mean, again, how much mentoring can you do on a screen? Not very much, probably.
Michael, where can people find you?
AspectMinistries.com, ASPECT Ministries.com. And then if you want to look at the products that we have, the videos and the books, it's Mind Cuisine, you know, mindcuisine.com. And that's where they can buy them.
Awesome. And then when's next semester if people want to look you up? When does that start? January?
January. I teach at West Hills College. We teach in comparative religion and Western civilization at West Hills College. I don't know about my Excelsior or Bradman schedules yet, but they'll let me know in due time.
Awesome. Michael Bogart, 21st Century Faith. Always good to see you, buddy.
See you, Chuck.
All right.
Thanks.
Hey, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back on the buzz. Stick around.